Joshua is an old man now. His ministry is just about over. He has led the children of Israel into the conquest of the promised land. And now he gathers them together. They're settled in the land. They're living in houses that they did not build. They're enjoying the fruit of the vines that they did not plant, trees that they did not plant. They are successful. The hand of God has been with them. He has manifested his presence in delivering their enemies into their hands. But as is often the case, when you come to that place of success, many times people begin to get a little careless, not having to depend upon the Lord as much as they really need to do. They think they don't need the Lord anymore. I'm successful. And there is a tendency to get careless in your relationship with God. And so Joshua calls them together, and he is demanding that they make some important decisions. And here we are gathered together today, and it's a day of decisions, some very important decisions for many of you. And as Joshua stands before this huge multitude of people, he says to them, if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve. Notice he doesn't say, choose if you will serve or not, because everybody is serving some God. Everybody is mastered in their life by some master passion that controls you. You are a servant to it. And so it isn't a matter of serving or not, it's a matter of who you are going to serve. Bob Dylan sort of flirted with Christianity a few years back, and he did make an album that had a lot of Christian connotation to it. And one of the songs of his album was, "You've Gotta Serve Somebody." And that is so true. You've gotta serve somebody. You are serving somebody. You are serving some God in your life. You see, God is really not a name. God is a title, the title of the master passion of your life. There are no atheists. Every man has some God. Many people do not have the true and the living God, but everyone has some God that is mastering his life. As Joshua stands before the people, he said, choose this day whom you will serve. It's interesting that God, when he created us in his image, because God is a self-determinate being, God made us self-determinate beings. That is, he gave us the capacity of choice. And when he gave to us the capacity of choice, he also then holds us responsible to the choices that we make. For God to give to Adam and Eve the capacity of choice was an interesting and wonderful thing. He put a tree in the garden and he said, don't eat, which meant that they had the choice of eating or not eating. God said, in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. If you exercise your choice against the will of God, then that is what sin is all about. And it's a tragedy that many people like Adam and Eve make a choice that is in conflict with God's choice for them. So he is saying, choose this day whom you will serve. And of course, this is a message that is appropriate for every age. It is a message that is appropriate for every man. You must choose who you are going to serve. No, you are going to serve somebody. Now, as he gave to these guys the challenge, choose this day whom you will serve, he talked about the gods that they served back across the Euphrates in Babylon. And basically, the god that was served in Babylon was Baal. And Baal was the deifying of man's intellect, saying that to know and to understand is the chief goal of life. And I cannot and I will not believe in anything that I cannot bring within the confines of my own understanding. And there are people that are that way today. And you ask them about God, about the true and the living God. And so often they will respond, well, I'm an agnostic. And they try to give it sort of a Harvard nasal sound, agnostic. And it sounds a lot more intelligent that way. And you think, whoa, here's a real brain. He's an agnostic, And it's interesting, when I was in high school, I studied Latin. When I was in college, I studied Greek. And back when the cells were a little cleaner, not so many cobwebs and all, I used to sometimes just for fun translate the Greek into Latin. And when I came to the Greek word agnosko, from which our word agnostic comes, gnosko is to know. A is a negative prefix in Greek, and so you put the A in front of it, and you have not to know. Theos is God. Atheos, no God. And the A is a negative. And in translating this Greek agnosko into Latin, I was amused to discover that the Latin equivalent to agnosko is ignoramus. So next time you meet someone and you start to share with them about the Lord and they say, well, I'm an agnostic, you can just smile inside and say, you poor ignorant fellow. Doesn't sound very intelligent, though, to say, I'm an ignoramus, does it? Interesting. A man makes knowledge his God. He spends his time in universities and getting his degrees. And how does he end? With a confession of ignorance. I'm an agnostic. Joshua said, do you want to serve Baal? Choose who you're going to serve. Or he said the gods that were in Egypt, and of course in Egypt they made everything a god. And the pantheism. Or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. Now basically the Amorites, they worshipped the god Molech. Now Molech was the god of pleasure. And much of it sexual pleasure. And that was the whole culture of the Amorites, just living for pleasure and dominated by their sexual desires. And the interesting thing of a man who lives for pleasure, how does he end? He ends really with a lust that cannot be satisfied. I live to try to satisfy this craving within. That's my God. And I end up with this emptiness inside that I cannot fill, the trying to find the pleasure. Which God are you going to serve? Now, of course, interesting today, we don't make idols. They made little idols to represent their gods. They had the little idols of Baal. They had the little idols of Molech and Mammon and Aphrodite. And they would represent it. It was more honest than we are today, because they acknowledged, by putting the little idol there in the entrance of their homes, they acknowledge we worship and we serve pleasure, or we worship and we serve the intellect, or we worship and serve power. And it was an acknowledgement of, these are the things that I think are most important in life. These are the things that I am living for. These are the things that I am giving my life to. And they would acknowledge that with the little image. We don't make images today, and so we say, well, I don't worship any God. Oh, yes, you do. You just don't name it. But there are names for the various gods that people do worship. And as you look at your own heart, as you look at your own life, you have to confess that this is what is most important to me. This is what I am living for. This is top drawer in my life. And if you can discover that, you'll discover the God that you are serving and the God that you are worshiping. That which you are willing to sacrifice and set aside other things for. That's your God. The thing that has the prominent place in your life, that's your God. And so the challenge of Joshua to these men, choose this day whom you will serve. And then he said, as for me and my house, we will serve Jehovah. I think that it is great when a man can speak for his family. When a man can say, as for me and my house, we will serve Jehovah. And I pray that each of you fellows can speak for your family. I pray that you are such a leader in your home, leading by example, that you can say, as for me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord. And I pray that that shall be the case for each of you, that you will lead your family in serving the Lord. Lead your family in family devotions. Lead your family in the understanding of God's love for us through Jesus Christ. Set the example for your family. Let your children see you reading the Word. Let them hear you praying unto God. Set before them the example, and then you can say, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I pray He tells them then, serve the Lord in sincerity and in truth. The word sincere, it's an English word that comes directly from the Latin. Latin is sincere. And the Latin word means without wax. Sincere. It used to be, in Rome, they were great at sculpturing. They would take a piece of marble and they would sculpture from it a likeness of the Roman gods or other things. And oftentimes, as they were sculpturing, it may be a bust or something, the chisel would slip and they would pop the nose off. Well, they had an interesting way of grinding the marble that they were using into powder and mixing it together with wax. And they could put on a wax nose that looked like the marble nose that was chipped off. And they would go ahead and sell the little statue that they had repaired with the wax noses or wax ears or whatever. And the people would buy them, but come summertime, when the hot weather came, the noses would just sort of droop down the face. And so the word sincere, it's real. It isn't phony. It isn't a, it isn't a fake. It's something that is phony. And that is what Joshua is saying. Serve the Lord in sincerity. Not phony, but from your heart, truly serve the Lord. And when you do, you set the pattern and the example for the family, and you'll find that they also will serve him in sincerity and in truth. He said, put away your other gods, which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt. And if it seems evil to serve Jehovah, then choose this day whom you will serve. Fellows, we're living in rough times, you know that. Our world is in serious danger. We are sitting on a powder keg. We don't know when the fuse is going to hit the powder. But we all are aware that things could blow up at any moment in this world scene. And knowing this, it's important that we have a solid relationship with God and that we are leading our family in the right path so that when the crisis does come, we will be prepared in our hearts because of our walk with our Lord. So I would encourage you today, guys, choose the God that you are going to serve, and then serve him with all of your heart, with all of your strength. Be an example to your families, and God will bless you.